Hello everybody, in this episode we are going to talk about the emerging trends coming from the Silicon Valley banking crisis.
The biggest bank collapse since the 2008 financial crisis, and it shut down today. It's called Silicon Valley Bank, and it is one of the tech industry's largest lenders, also lends to individuals across the country. It is now under control of the federal government.
HSBC acquires Silicon Valley Bank UK.
SVB employees receive their annual bonuses. If sources are to be believed, these payments were made for the work done in 2022, and they had been in process days before the collapse.
Well, the news is all over the place, but the trends are pretty obvious. In this video, we are going to talk through specific trends that are going to stick with us over the next few quarters, if not years. And the first trend that I want to highlight over here is that winter is coming. Well, let me tell you, it's not winter is coming, but winter is extending. And what do I mean by that? Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and Silvergate Bank, all the three banks that were shut down in the last 1 week, all of them were tied up with the startup ecosystem. Tech startups, cryptos, Web3. Silicon Valley Bank, as a matter of fact, was serving more than 50% of the entire US startups. Huge influence in the startup market. Now, when these banks go down, what happens? The first one, these venture capital firms which actually invest in startups, right? For example, if there is a startup which is raising money, or if a startup is getting money from somewhere, those investors get that money from either rich people or they get money from some banks. And Silicon Valley Bank was one of them which was giving money to these investors. So that line is completely cut. So you can see that if the funding line is cut, of course, the startups wouldn't get more money. Already, startups were facing funding winter because the interest rates were increasing. So a lot of people were rather parking their money in fixed deposits or buying bonds because they were anyways giving good returns. Now, to add to that, this crisis leads to definitely the funding winter going beyond what was imagined earlier. The second thing that is also going to happen is a lot of these venture capital firms have mentioned that they are not going to go and invest in new companies. They are rather going to redeploy their cash and strategize in such a way that they support the companies where they already invested their money. Because, of course, this is a tough economic situation. So, the companies where they invested, believing that they will do well, now they need to go and support these companies because it's not their fault, it's the economy's fault. So now these guys are redeploying their cash and saying very clearly that we are not going to invest a lot in new companies. The third thing that we will also notice is that startups previously or even now pay a lot of money to employees. They have a lot of employees too. These startups were paying more than even established companies, multinational corporations. Now, with the funding winter and the funding lines getting dried up, you will notice that the salaries will go down and also the firings will probably continue for a longer time. So, unfortunate times in the startup ecosystem. Now, if we move into the second trend, hey, it's not just about startups. Let's talk about other companies and other industries too. And the second trend is about don't catch a falling knife. And what do I mean by that? Charles Schwab, for example, is a major financial services company in the US. And this particular company's stock was down by 30% in the last 5 days. Huge buying opportunity, right? People will say, hey, big company, the stock is going down. Why don't I buy it? Buy low and sell high. That's the strategy, correct? But don't do that. Buy any stock only if you are comfortable with their recently released annual statements or quarterly statements. What do I mean by that? Let's look at the recently released annual statement of Charles Schwab and very clear trends coming from that too. For example, the company's AFM and HTM investment securities, that is available for sale and hold to maturity investment securities, are now having an unrealized loss of totaling $27 billion. This is huge. And this is almost equal to the capital that this bank has. Hey, you might be asking, like, hey, what are you speaking, Pavan? This is all Greek and Latin. Well, that is true. This is Greek and Latin. But you need to know these things if you really want to go and invest in a banking stock. I'm giving you a video link. In that link, I explained very clearly what are the metrics that you need to look into and how you should analyze a recent quarterly report from a bank. And that video will help you understand how to analyze a bank stock and whether you should purchase a stock versus not. Please do go do this analysis. Don't go by popularistic opinions that, hey, this banking stock is going down, it's a big company, I'll go buy it. Definitely not. Now, the second thing is also happening in the banking world is not only the big companies, the smaller companies are even losing a lot more in their share value. Some of these banks have gone down by 60 to 70%. Now, the government has come and said that, hey, we will save depositors, their money is safe. That doesn't mean the investors' money is safe. The first guys who will go down is the small banks, because when people go and start pulling up money, there is not a lot of money left with them. So banks might go down and smaller banks have a higher risk of going down. And when that happens, investor money is gone forever. And that was mentioned by the President Joe Biden himself. He said that depositors' money, we will take care of it, but investors, we believe they should have done their research. This is how capitalism works. So please be careful before you go and invest in these small banks or big banks. Now, what is everybody doing in the market? Very clearly, they are running towards safe assets.
As well, you see that reflected in the bond market. Just an absolutely massive move happening in yields this morning. Right now, the 2-year Treasury yield down another 42 basis points on the day. We are now down more than 90 basis points over the course of the last 3 days. We have not seen a 3-day move like that since Black Monday all the way back in 1987. This is a massive repricing of what things breaking in the financial system ultimately is going to mean for the trajectory of the Fed's policy.
These safe assets, this run is unprecedented. 35 years. There is an 80% probability that you wouldn't even be born by that at that time. Right? How do I know that? Because 80% of the audience of this channel are less than 35 years old. Now, please understand these are unprecedented times and a lot of people are moving towards safer assets, and it is absolutely fine. Bonds or the other option could be within the stocks, defensive stocks like utilities. So do your own analysis. Now, the third thing which I also want to highlight is about end of the day, taxpayers are the ones who are always screwed, no matter what politicians or the government say. In his recently released LinkedIn post, Mr. Rishi Sunak very clearly said that, hey, we are helping Silicon Valley Bank, UK's division, but we are not taking any taxpayers' money. And even our beloved Mr. Joe Biden also said the same thing.
No losses will be, and this is an important point, no losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Let me repeat that. No losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Instead, the money will come from the fees that banks pay into the deposit insurance fund.
This is at best a political statement, nothing more than that. What do I mean by that? Well, they say that these banks will now use the emergency fund of Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And where is this emergency fund coming from, by the way? Can anybody ask that question? It is coming from the fees that banks are paying regularly so that they can support each other in these kind of existential crisis situations. Great story to say to everybody, right? But where do these banks get these fees from? Just ask yourself that question. Do banks pay the fee from the CEO's pocket? Absolutely not. There are hundreds and thousands of hidden charges that we keep paying to the banks. This could be one of them. That's it. So while the government says it is not taxpayers' money and it is banks' money, where is that bank's money coming from? Depositors. And these depositors are taxpayers. Well, it's a long story short, but end of the day, this is a political drama. So please don't believe that. And whenever something wrong happens in the society, it is always, the issue is socialized. That is, everybody is penalized. But if something good happens in the society, only the CEOs or the CFOs or the rich people make money. And that is the nature of capitalism. Profits are always capitalized, but the losses are socialized. I hope this makes sense to you, and these emerging trends are as clear as they can get. So, as parting thoughts, what I would strongly recommend, guys, is, hey, governments are ready to save depositors, but they are not ready to save investors. So take care of your money and be prudent with your investment decisions. at least right now in this crisis situations. If you want me to cover any more topics around SVB, please do let me know, I'll do that. And also thank you for all the support for the last video. Please do press on that like button if you like this video as well, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye bye.